The ship fell from the sky like a dying star. Park saw it from his small metal house on the edge of the scrap fields. He was eating cold rice from a dented can when the ground shook and orange light filled the night. He dropped his spoon and ran outside. A trail of fire stretched across the dark sky, and somewhere beyond the mountains of broken machines, something crashed with a sound like thunder. Stood there for a long moment. He was 41 years old. His hair was turning gray. His hands were rough from years of cutting metal and pulling wires from dead ships. He had lived alone on this forgotten planet called Dust 7 for almost 8 years. Nobody came here. Nobody cared about this place. It was just a dumping ground for old spaceships and broken dreams. He should have gone back inside. He should have finished his cold rice and gone to sleep. But something made him grab his old flashlight and start walking toward the crash. It took him 3 hours to find the ship. It was buried in a canyon, twisted and burning. The metal was a strange purple color he had never seen before. This was not a human ship. The symbols on the broken wings were alien, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Approached carefully. He had seen alien ships before, but only in pictures. Earth's attempt to join the galactic community had failed 20 years ago. Humans were considered too young, too primitive, too unimportant. So humanity stayed in its small corner of space, forgotten by the greater powers. He heard a sound, a small weak sound like a child crying. His heart beat faster. He climbed over the burning wreckage, ignoring the heat that burned through his thin gloves. He found a hole in the ship's side and crawled inside. The smell was strange, sweet and metallic. Emergency lights flickered red and purple. He followed the crying sound through twisted hallways until he found a small room, and in that room he found her. She was not human, that much was clear. Her skin was pale blue like morning sky. Her hair was silver and seemed to glow softly in the darkness. She had 2 arms and 2 legs like a human, but her eyes were too large, too dark, like pools of liquid night. She was small, maybe the size of a 12-year-old human child, but he could not guess her real age. She was trapped under a metal beam. Blood that looked like liquid starlight leaked from a wound on her head. She saw and screamed, but her scream was weak. She was dying. Raised his hand slowly. He did not know if she could understand him. He did not know if his words meant anything to her, but he spoke anyway. "I am not going to hurt you," he said softly. "I want to help, okay? Help." She stared at him with those impossible eyes. She said something in a language that sounded like singing and breaking glass at the same time. He did not understand, but he saw fear in her eyes, fear and pain and something else. Hope, maybe. The desperate hope of someone who has no other choice. Moved slowly. He found a metal rod and used it to lift the beam. His muscles screamed. His back felt like it was breaking, but he pushed harder and finally the beam moved enough for her to crawl free. She collapsed immediately. Her breathing was shallow and fast, picked her up carefully. She weighed almost nothing. Her skin was cold, so cold it hurt his hands, but he held her close and carried her out of the dying ship. For the next 11 days, Park did everything he could to keep the alien girl alive. He did not have medicine. He did not have a doctor. He had engine grease, which he used to seal her wounds. He had torn cloth, which he used as bandages. He had clean water, which he gave her drop by drop when she was too weak to drink. He had his own food rations, and he gave her most of them because she needed strength more than he did. She had a fever for the first 5 days. She cried out in her sleep, calling names he could not understand. Sometimes she grabbed his hand and held it so tightly that her small fingers left marks on his skin. He did not pull away. He sat beside her and talked to her in Korean, in English, in whatever words came to his tired mind. He told her about Earth, about the green forests and blue oceans he had not seen in 15 years. He told her about his mother, who used to sing to him when he was sick. He told her about the stars and how they looked different from every planet he had visited. He told her that she was going to be okay, even though he was not sure if that was true. When she cried at night, he sang to her. Old Korean songs his grandmother had taught him. His voice was rough and out of tune, but the girl seemed to calm down when he sang. She would close her dark eyes and breathe more slowly, and sometimes her cold fingers would relax around his hand. On the 6th day, she opened her eyes and looked at him clearly for the first time. Safe, she said. The word was strange in her mouth, shaped by a tongue not made for human language, but it was a human word, his word. She had learned it from his endless talking. Smiled. It was the first real smile he had worn in years. Yes, he said, safe, you are safe. She smiled back. It was a small smile, weak and uncertain, but it was real. Did not know that he was holding a princess. He did not know that her mother ruled 17 star systems and commanded fleets that could burn entire worlds. He did not know that the most powerful empire in the galaxy was already searching for this small, fragile girl. He only knew that she was alone and hurt, and that he would not let her die. That was enough. The sky turned black with ships. Was teaching the girl how to eat dried fruit when he heard the sound. It was like a storm, but deeper, heavier. The kind of sound that made your bones shake. He walked outside and looked up, and his heart stopped. Ships, hundreds of them, thousands maybe. They covered the sky like a metal blanket blocking out the sun. The largest ones were bigger than mountains. Their purple hulls glowed with strange energy, and their weapons pointed down at the planet like angry fingers. The girl came outside. She looked up at the ships and her face changed. Fear, recognition, something else he could not name. She said, pointing at herself. Then she pointed at the sky, Mother. Understood. The girl's name was, and her mother had come looking for her. He should have felt relief. Her family had found her. She would go home. She would be safe, really safe, with people who could help her properly. But something cold settled in his stomach. The way those ships looked. The way they moved. This was not a rescue mission. This was an invasion. We need to hide, he said. Looked at him with confusion. Her human vocabulary was still small, maybe 30 words, but she understood his tone. She understood the fear in his eyes. He grabbed her hand and ran. Behind them, the ships began to land. Soldiers poured out like water from a broken dam. They were tall, much taller than humans. Their armor was the same purple as the ships, and their weapons glowed with cruel light. They spread across the planet in waves, searching every building, every cave, every shadow. Knew these scrap fields better than anyone. He had lived here for 8 years. He knew every tunnel, every hidden path, every place where a man could disappear. He led through the mountains of broken ships, through narrow gaps between rusted metal walls, through underground passages that smelled of oil and decay. They reached his emergency shelter just as the sun set. It was a cargo container buried deep in a canyon, covered with sand and metal scraps. He had prepared it years ago, in case pirates ever came to the planet. He never thought he would use it to hide from an alien empire. Inside was shaking, not from cold this time, from fear. They hurt people, she said slowly, finding the human words one by one. Mother, angry, very angry. She hurt people when angry. Knelt in front of her. What people? The people on this planet. Nodded, tears rolled down her pale blue cheeks. I am sorry, my fault. No, wiped her tears with his rough thumb. Not your fault, never your fault, you did nothing wrong. But they hurt because of me. Then I will stop them. Looked at him with shock. You cannot, Mother is, big, strong, very strong, you are. She did not finish, but he understood. He was small, weak, human, nothing compared to an empire. Maybe, said, but I can try. They stayed in the shelter for 2 days, listened to the sounds outside, ships flying overhead, explosions in the distance, screaming sometimes. The alien soldiers were destroying everything. They were burning buildings and questioning survivors. They were looking for their princess with fire and fury. On the 3rd day, knew they were close. He could hear the heavy footsteps of soldiers walking through the canyon. He could hear their alien voices, sharp and commanding. They were scanning for life signs. They would find the shelter soon. He made a decision. "Stay here," he told. "Stay hidden. I will go outside." "No," she grabbed his arm with both hands. "They will kill you." "Maybe, but if I go outside, they will stop looking. They will find me instead of you. You can escape." "I do not want to escape without you." Smiled sadly. "Little star, you are a princess. You are important. I am just an old man who fixes broken things. Your life is worth more than mine." "That is not true." Her dark eyes filled with fresh tears. "You saved me. You sang to me. You called me little star. You are important. You are important to me." Before could answer, the shelter door exploded inward. Soldiers poured inside, their weapons raised. They shouted in that strange singing language, pushed behind him and raised his hands. He expected to die in that moment. He expected pain and darkness and nothing else. But stepped around him. She planted her small feet on the ground and spread her arms wide, standing between and the soldiers. "Stop," she screamed in her own language. "You will not touch him. I am princess of the empire, daughter of queen, and I command you to stop." The soldiers froze. Their weapons lowered slightly. They looked at each other with confusion and fear. Did not understand the words, but he understood what was doing. She was protecting him. This small, fragile girl who had nearly died in his arms was standing between him and an army. For him. One soldier spoke into a communication device. A long moment passed. Then the soldier knelt before and all the others followed. The princess was found. The search was over. But now came the harder part. Now had to face the queen. They put chains on his wrists and ankles. Heavy chains made of metal so strong that he could not even scratch them with his fingernails. 2 soldiers carried him like he weighed nothing at all, and they threw him into a small dark room on one of the ships. He waited there for hours or maybe days. He could not tell. There were no windows, no lights, no sounds except his own breathing. He thought about his life, about all the choices he had made, about the family he had left behind on Earth 30 years ago, about the wars he had fought, about the friends he had lost, about the long, lonely years on Dust 7, waiting to die among broken machines. He thought about her smile when she first said safe, about her small fingers holding his hand during the fever, about the way she stood in front of those soldiers, ready to fight an army with nothing but her voice. He hoped she was okay. He hoped they were treating her well. Whatever happened to him, he hoped would be happy. The door opened. Light flooded in, so bright that he had to close his eyes. Strong hands grabbed him and dragged him through long hallways. When he could finally see again, he found himself in the biggest room he had ever seen. It was like a church, but wrong. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it. Giant pillars of purple crystal held up the roof. Banners hung from the walls, showing symbols and pictures he did not understand. Along the sides of the room stood hundreds of alien figures, all staring at him with cold eyes. But the thing that caught his attention was the throne. It was made of bones. Not human bones, but something larger, older, stranger. The bones were white as snow and carved with symbols that seemed to move when he looked at them. And sitting on that throne was the largest creature he had ever seen. Queen. She was almost 3 meters tall. Her skin was darker than, more purple than blue. Her eyes burned with cold fire. Her body was covered in armor that looked like it was grown from her own flesh. Sharp crystals rose from her shoulders and back like frozen flames. She was beautiful and terrible at the same time. She was the most frightening thing had ever seen. And she was very, very angry. Who dared to touch my daughter? Her voice shook the room. The crystal pillars vibrated. Some of the aliens watching fell to their knees, felt the words hit his chest like physical blows. His ears rang. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might break. But he did not fall. He stood there, swaying slightly, and looked at the queen. "I did." Silence, complete, absolute silence. Every eye in the room turned to him. He could feel their shock like heat on his skin. A translation device clicked and buzzed. The queen's eyes widened slightly. Then they narrowed with something like interest. "Explain." Took a deep breath. His voice was steady, even though his hands were shaking. "I found your daughter in a crashed ship. She was dying, trapped under metal, bleeding, alone. I pulled her out. I carried her to my home. I treated her wounds. I fed her. I kept her warm during the cold nights. I sang to her when she cried." He paused. The queen said nothing. She just stared at him with those burning eyes. "I did not know she was a princess. I did not know who she was. I only knew that she was a child who needed help, so I helped her." "And you expect me to believe this?" The queen's voice was quieter now, but somehow more dangerous. "You expect me to believe that a weak, primitive human saved my daughter out of kindness, with no plan for reward, no scheme for power?" "I do not expect anything, Your Majesty. I am just telling you what happened." The queen rose from her throne. Each step she took made the floor shake. She walked down toward him, and with each step she grew larger and more terrifying. When she stopped in front of him, she was so close he could smell her. She smelled like lightning and cold stars. She bent down until her face was level with his. Her eyes searched his, looking for lies, looking for weakness, looking for the trick she believed must be there. "Your people are known to us," she said softly. "Small, short-lived, insignificant. You spread across your tiny corner of space like insects, fighting among yourselves, destroying your own worlds. Why should I believe that one of your kind would risk his life for my daughter with no reward?" "Because that is what you do for children," said. "Any child. It does not matter who they are or where they come from. When a child is hurt and alone, you help them. That is not human. That is not alien. That is just right." The queen stared at him for a long, terrible moment. Then from somewhere behind the crowd, a small voice called out, "Mother!" Pushed through the watching aliens. She ran to and grabbed his hand. She looked up at her mother with fierce, determined eyes. "He is telling the truth. He saved me. He gave me his food when he had nothing. He sang to me when I was scared. He called me Little Star because he could not say my real name. Please, Mother, please do not hurt him." The queen looked at her daughter. Something changed in her face. The anger did not disappear, but something softer appeared beneath it, something almost like wonder. "You care for this human?" "Yes, he is my friend, my first real friend." The queen straightened. She looked at again. And this time her eyes held something new, not anger, not suspicion. Curiosity. "Then we shall see if he deserves your friendship," she said. "By the ancient laws, he must face the trial of worth. If he speaks true, he will live. If he lies, he will die." Did not know what the trial of worth was, but he nodded anyway. "I am ready," he said. The trial of worth had 3 parts. Each part was designed to break a person in a different way. The first tested the body. The second tested the mind. The third tested the soul. No human had ever faced the trial. Most aliens who tried it died. The nobles gathered to watch, expecting entertainment, expecting to see the weak human fall. They were wrong. The first trial was called the Maze of Echoes. They put in a giant underground labyrinth carved from black stone. The walls moved on their own. The paths changed every few minutes. Traps waited everywhere. Poison darts, crushing walls, floors that opened into pits of fire. But the worst part was the echoes. Strange sounds filled the maze. Voices of people he knew, his dead friends calling his name, his mother asking why he never came home, screaming for help. The sounds were designed to drive a person insane, to make them run blindly into the traps. Walked slowly. He covered his ears with torn cloth from his shirt. When the voices became too loud, he hummed old songs to himself. He used the skills he had learned in the military, reading the patterns of the moving walls, feeling the air currents that warned of traps ahead. It took him 7 hours, but he walked out of the maze alive. The watching nobles whispered among themselves. This was unexpected. This was impossible. Surely he would fail the next trial. The second trial was combat. They brought out the champion of, a warrior who had never lost a fight. He was 2.5 meters tall. His body was covered in scales harder than steel. His 4 arms each held a different weapon. He had killed more than 300 opponents in the arena. Had no weapon, no armor, nothing but his fists and his tired body. The fight began. The champion attacked with all 4 weapons at once, dodged. He was slower, weaker, smaller, but he was also human, and humans had learned to fight things bigger than themselves since the beginning of their history. He watched the champion's patterns. Every fighter had patterns. Every strong creature became lazy because they never had to try hard. The champion was used to winning easily. He was not used to prey that refused to die. Took hits, many hits, his ribs cracked, his left eye swelled shut. Blood poured from cuts all over his body, but he kept moving, he kept watching, he kept waiting for his moment. It came after 20 minutes. The champion swung all 4 weapons in a wide attack, expecting to jump backward like he had done before. Instead, ran forward. He ducked under the swinging blades and drove his fist into the one spot on the champion's body that had no scales, the throat. The champion fell. He gasped for air, clutching his damaged throat, stood over him, swaying, barely able to stay upright. "Yield," said. The champion yielded. The crowd was silent. Even Queen looked surprised. A human, broken and bleeding, had defeated her greatest warrior. They gave 1 hour to rest before the final trial. A doctor treated his wounds, wrapped his ribs, gave him medicine for the pain, but did not rest. He sat quietly, thinking about what came next. The third trial was called the Truth Chamber. They brought him into a small white room. There was no furniture, no decoration, just white walls and a white floor and a strange humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere. Queen entered and stood before him, just the 2 of them. "This chamber knows lies," she said. "When you speak a lie, you will feel pain, great pain, pain that breaks minds and stops hearts. Many have died here, unable to speak the truth they hid even from themselves." Nodded, "I understand." "Then answer my questions." The Queen's eyes burned into his. "Why did you save my daughter?" Thought carefully before speaking. Not because he wanted to hide anything, but because he wanted to find the exact right words. "Because she was alone and afraid. Because I remembered what that felt like. Because when I was a child, I was alone and afraid too. Nobody helped me then. I wanted to be the person for her that nobody was for me." No pain. The chamber accepted his truth. The Queen's expression flickered. "You gained nothing from helping her. You risked your life for a stranger. Why?" "Because that is who I want to be. Because the galaxy is cold and dark and full of cruelty, and I wanted to add one small piece of warmth to it. Because kindness does not need a reason. It is the reason." No pain, truth. "Do you fear me?" the Queen asked. "Yes, you are the most terrifying thing I have ever seen. You could destroy me with a thought. You could burn my world to ashes. I am very, very afraid of you." "Truth," the Queen almost smiled. "And yet you speak to me as an equal. Why?" Looked directly into her ancient eyes. "Because fear and respect are not the same thing. I fear your power, but I will not bow to anyone, not even you, if I have done nothing wrong. I saved your daughter. I protected her. I loved her as if she were my own, and I would do it again, even knowing it might kill me." The chamber hummed, felt warmth spread through his body, complete, absolute truth. Queen was silent for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, softer, almost confused. "In 10,000 years," she said, "no one has ever passed all 3 trials. No one has ever spoken such complete truth in this chamber. Your body is weak. Your life is short. Your people are forgotten by the galaxy. And yet, she paused, searching for words. And yet you may be the most worthy creature I have ever met. Said nothing. He just stood there, bloody and broken and proud, waiting for her judgment. The queen made her decision. The ceremony took place 3 days later. Stood in the great throne room again. But this time he was not in chains. He wore simple black clothes that the aliens had given him. His wounds were healing. His bruises were fading from purple to yellow. He looked small among the giant aliens who filled the room, but he did not feel small. Queen sat on her bone throne. Princess stood beside her, wearing a silver dress that sparkled like starlight. The little princess could not stop smiling. 10,000 years ago, the queen began, her voice filling the silent room, my ancestor created the title of guardian. This person would protect the royal children with their life. They would teach them, guide them, love them as their own. For all these years only have held this title. Today that changes. Whispers spread through the crowd. Shock, confusion, some anger, a human, a guardian. It was impossible, it was wrong. It went against every tradition they had. But Queen raised her hand, and the whispers died. I have seen things in this human that shame many of you. Courage that did not bend under the weight of fear. Wisdom that found paths where none seemed to exist. And truth so pure that the chamber itself seemed to sing. He is not, but he is worthy. More worthy than most who wear our colors. She stood and walked toward. In her hands she carried a simple circle of silver metal. Park of Earth, kneel. Knelt, his knees touched the cold stone floor. He looked up at the alien queen who towered above him. Do you swear to protect Princess with your life? I do. Do you swear to teach her with wisdom and patience? I do. Do you swear to love her as your own child, to guide her through darkness, to celebrate her joys and share her sorrows? Thought of the 11 days in his small metal house, the songs he sang at midnight, the tears he wiped away, the first time she called him by name. I already do, he said. The queen placed the silver circle on his head. It was warm against his skin, and for a moment he felt something strange. Like the metal was alive, like it was looking into his heart and finding him acceptable. Rise, guardian, protector of Princess, member of the royal court, you are no longer a stranger among us. You are family. Rose, the crowd was silent. Then slowly they began to kneel. One by one, the great alien nobles lowered themselves to the floor, not for him, for the title, for the tradition, but it still meant something. Ran to him and threw her arms around his waist. Father friend, she whispered, you stayed. I promised, little star. I always keep my promises. Years passed, learned the language and customs. He learned their history and their laws. He trained in the human ways of thinking, the creativity, the stubbornness, the strange ability to find hope where none existed. The queen watched from her throne. At first she watched with suspicion, then with curiosity, then with something close to respect. You have changed, my daughter, she said one day, when was practicing combat with her new teachers. She laughs more than she used to. She questions everything. She thinks in ways that confuse even our greatest minds. She was always that way, said. I just gave her permission to show it. You are a strange creature, guardian. So I have been told. The queen was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, do you miss your home, Earth? Thought about the question. He thought about the green forests and blue oceans he had not seen in so long. He thought about the family he had left behind, the life he had once wanted. Sometimes, he said, but home is not a place. Home is where the people you love are, and my people are here now. The queen nodded slowly. Then perhaps we should make sure your people on Earth know that one of their own has become worthy of the stars. It started with a message, a simple communication to Earth's government. informing them that a human had been accepted into the royal court, that a citizen of their forgotten planet had passed trials that no alien had survived in 10,000 years. Earth did not believe it at first. Then they received the recordings, the maze, the combat, the truth chamber. They saw Park stand before a queen who ruled 17 star systems and refused to bend. Things changed after that. The Empire opened trade routes with Earth. They shared technology. They offered protection, not because humans were powerful or valuable, but because one human had shown them something they had not expected. Kindness without condition, courage without reward, love without limit. 20 years later, when historians wrote about the great alliance between Earth and the Empire, they traced it back to a single moment. A crashed ship on a forgotten world. A lonely man who found a frightened child and chose to help. Was old by then. His hair was white. His body moved slowly. Humans lived such short lives compared to. But now a grown princess who would one day become queen still visited him every day. "Tell me the story again," she would say, just like she had when she was a child. "Tell me about the night you found me." And would smile and begin. The ship fell from the sky like a dying star. Queen wrote about him in her private memoirs, words that would be read by generations of leaders. "I have commanded fleets that burned worlds. I have ended dynasties with a single word. I have lived for 3,000 years and seen empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. But I have never met anyone who frightened me the way that human did. Not with strength or weapons or threats. He frightened me because he showed me that true power has nothing to do with armies or crowns. True power is the choice to be kind when cruelty would be easier. The choice to protect when running would be safer. The choice to love when indifference would cost nothing. The humans are not the strongest species. They are not the or the oldest. But when they choose to care about something, there is no force in the universe that can stop them. Remember this, my children. Remember Park. Remember what one small, fragile human can do when he decides that something matters." And across the galaxy, they did remember. They remembered the man who saved a princess with cold rice and old songs. They remembered the human who walked forward when an empire demanded to know, who dared touch its daughter. They remembered Park. And they never forgot.